Now, it's the biggest wildlife survey of its kind on the planet. This weekend, we are all being encouraged to do our bit for science by getting involved in the RSPB's annual Big Garden Birdwatch.
Let's go straight to our climate editor, Justin Rowlatt, who's at Newport Wetlands for us this morning. Justin, very good morning to you. I know it's not what you're talking about. You appear to have massive gloves on.
I have got huge cold. It's cold here, Charlie, come on. But listen, we're trying to film. There are birds all around us, but it is notoriously difficult to film wildlife. So let's give it a go. Gary's going to try. There's a robin there. That's not a bad start. There were a little gang of blue tits. So let's see if they come. I don't think the blue tits are going to join us quite yet, but we are in the Newport Wetland National Nature Reserve. It's a huge nature reserve. It's almost 500 hectares of reed beds and wet grasslands. There's a shoreline there as well, and you get hundreds and hundreds of wetland birds and reed birds coming in here, as well as the garden birds. But it's garden birds that we want to talk about because this is the Big Garden Birdwatch, and I'm joined by Liv Davies, who is you're a volunteer for the RSPB, but you're also a keen Big Garden bird watcher, aren't you? You've done it before. What do people need to do?
So it's basically just taking an hour out of your day to sit down and observe wildlife and see what comes to visit your garden, note down the numbers.
So you can look out of your window, you could look in the park,
Yeah.
You could do it in your garden, on your balcony, anywhere. Anybody can do this, that's the point. But what's interesting about your garden, you know the birds that come to your garden individually, don't you?
Well, yeah, because I see them every day, so I'm used to seeing what comes. And there's house sparrows I get a single dunnock, 2 blue tits, and a coal tit, and an occasional wren as well.
And we are just filming this magnificent pheasant here.
Yeah.
You don't get any pheasants
That's Phil, I think.
That's Phil. You actually know this pheasant.
Yeah.
You know all the gardens, but I'm interested in your jackdaws because you've got a pair of jackdaws and they mate for life, don't they? And you see them from your garden.
Yeah, we have 2 jackdaws that live on the chimney opposite my house, so I know them, and lots of jackdaws where I live.
But this Big Garden Birdwatch is a really important scientific survey, and the data is used to monitor bird species in Britain, isn't it? This is Beccy Speight. Beccy runs the RSPB. It's crucial for you understanding what's happening to our gardens, isn't it? This survey?
Yeah. It's a massive citizen science project, basically. And what it tells us is what's happening to our most common birds. It gives us that snapshot of the birds we see around us every day and how they're doing. And because it's gone on for 44 years, we see the trends of which birds are doing well and which birds are doing less well.
And a huge number of people take part. So I think the biggest was at the end of the pandemic in 2021.
Over 1 million people took part.
Over 1 million people. We had 700,000 last year in 2022. So you would expect hundreds of thousands of people to do this.
Yeah, and it's not too late to take part now. You know, if you go onto our website and go on to RSPB/Birdwatch, you can sign up any time over this weekend. You can take part.
Now, how useful is the information you gather?
It's really useful. So we combine it with lots of other data sets to give us the state of the UK's birds, but it's really useful for those most common birds. So we can see that kind of birds like the song thrush, for example, has really declined over the years we've been doing the Birdwatch. And then there are other birds like the goldfinch, for example, which is doing quite well. So it just tells us the state of those trends, what's happening over time.
Now, Liv was mentioning the sparrows in her garden. I don't get any sparrow. I live in London. Sparrow was the London bird. I don't get any sparrows in my garden. They've had a terrible decline, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, London sparrows were famous, and what's happened is that even though it comes number 1 in the Birdwatch, it's declined by about 57% over the time we've been doing the Birdwatch. Now, some of that is probably about food, it's about habitat. They like living in kind of little gaps in buildings and things, and of course we've blocked a lot of those up. New developments don't have them, but it's also probably about disease. We've picked up avian malaria in sparrows as well, so that could be part of it. But they're actually doing a bit better over the last few years. So here in Wales, it's interesting that Liv said she sees them because they're actually doing a bit better here in Wales. So that's hopefully, fingers crossed, that's going to continue.
Now, you mentioned the goldfinches are good news stories, but there's You know, the wood pigeon is doing particularly well. I think
Yes.
it's increased by about 10 times, hasn't
Yeah,
it?
so a wood pigeon is a good example of a real generalist bird, and it's adapted really well to things like the intensification of how we farm over the last 50 years. So it's managing to find good food sources and good nesting in some of our more urban areas. I live in the middle of Nottingham and I get wood pigeons in my garden. So it's a very adaptable bird and it's managed to cope. It's the specialists that really struggle.
Now, you've done something rather special with this Birdwatch. You've commissioned a survey, haven't you, to show how good bird watching can be for us as well as for the information that you get.
Yeah, so it's good for the birds, it's good for nature, but it's good for us as well. And when we talk to people, about 90% of people said that they really feel like they benefit from being out in nature, listening to birdsong, watching birds. So it's really good for us as well, that connection with nature. It's one of the things people found in the pandemic, I think, and it's really continued on. So very important for us too.
And as Beccy says, it's very easy to do. You're helping the RSPB understand what's happening in your gardens, but you're also helping yourself by getting that connection with nature. Go on the RSPB website, you can find out how to do it, join into the Big Garden Birdwatch, and we will report the results when they come in and tell you what is happening to the garden birds of Britain.
I'll tell you what, Justin, you have delivered because you showed us a blue tit, a robin, a pheasant. You promised and you delivered. Thank you.
How about that magnificent pheasant? He was great, wasn't he?
He was lovely. He was lovely. You enjoy yourself. I'm glad the gloves are keeping you warm, and thank you for showing us around. And as Justin said, you can go to the RSPB website if you want to take part in the great big Birdwatch.